Storytime, Pentest fails. Talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but the obligatory who am I slide. Short answer, you can see it up there. Father, husband, son, brother. Over my career, I've been a pen tester, researcher, hillbilly, born in Kentucky up in the mountains, related to both Hatfields, McCoys, all that fun stuff. So this is not a gimmick for the show, for the presentation. This is actually has grass stains on it from where I was mowing my yard not too long ago with it. So it serves two purposes. It's one, it's comfortable, and yeah, it gets me into the mood to get the talk and all that. So, but yeah, so, I've been in InfoSec or InfoSec as an industry for almost 20 years now, 18, 19 years, somewhere in that range, give or take a little. During that time, I've seen a lot of different things that's happened in the industry, and we're going to be sharing some of that as we go through some of these slides. But first thing, as you saw on the front slide there, the cover page, you probably saw in the schedule and all that, this is going to be about Pentest fails. It's not going to be about some new awesome tool. It's not going to be about some new technique. I know you all have seen a lot of those at other presentations like that, like I've got this great new way to get domain admin, or I found this great way to do this buffer overflow, or something like that. That's great and all. But what you don't see there is all the stuff that led up to that, all the time and energy that people put into it, all the mistakes they had, all the setbacks they had before they got to that awesome kernel of greatness that they're going to be presenting to you or releasing to the industry. And that's what we're going to be talking about here, is that these things just don't come out of nowhere. You have a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of issues, a lot of setbacks as you go along. And I've been doing this, like I said, for a better part of 2 decades now. I still make mistakes. Not all the time, mind you, but hopefully I've learned over my career and have gotten better and better, but I just still make mistakes here and there, and all of us do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a few stories, a few scenarios. I've changed names, locations as appropriate, but all these are events that have actually really happened to either myself or coworkers of mine over my career. And it's things that could have been prevented if we took the time and thought about stuff like that. It's just mistakes that we all make. And throughout this, hopefully you all get to learn a little thing, it's something about it. Maybe you'll get a good laugh out of it, whatever. It's just a good exercise in learning that we're not all perfect. So, a little bit about myself. Well, first of all, my slides are all just quotes, except for one slide, pretty much. So, don't worry about them that much. You can read them. But so I started out my career more or less on accident. The company I was going to go work for, I had a job offer with, signed up for. I show up the first day, and they're like, sorry, that division you were going to no longer exists. I'm like, oh, that's great. They're like, here, pick a new office to go to. And I picked one. It just happened to be pen testing, their internal pen testing group. So I went to that. I'm like, okay, great. I'm here. I'm a CS major. I've got mathematics, computer science, all this. What can I do? They're like, first, you need to learn. So they gave me a big stack of, well, they showed me to my desk, and there's a big stack of excess equipment in the corner. They're like, build a network. I'm like, okay. So I grabbed some old Spark 20s and stuff like that, a couple of old Intel boxes, built out a network, talked to them, going back and forth. And it's just learning how to be a sysadmin a little bit. I had a lot of coaching along it, but it was more of, to do pen testing, I was taught to start by building a network to play on. And in there, I had my mentors helping me out. And for somewhere along the way, probably about the, I don't know, a month into it, I was very new into this, about a month into it, they're like, you're going on your first engagement. Well, you get your first engagement. So I go out there, I'm just piggybacking, watching people and all that. It was fun and all. I enjoyed it. I'm still doing it, but not that same engagement, mind you, but still doing pen testing. So eventually I get my first engagement by myself, or a coworker of mine, and we're both new guys there, and they're like, okay, here, you got your first engagement. It's an external. Go and do this. We're like, okay. We took the IP space. Let me get a drink. Sorry, so we get the IP space. This was back in 99, 2000, somewhere in there. We don't have all the awesome tools then as we do now. We did have Nmap, early version of Nmap, but we did have Nmap. Back then, there were some limitations to it. So we took Nmap, we feed it in the IP ranges that we're supposed to target. They gave us a long list of IP ranges. So we app, then just give it the long list of it and hit go. This was on a Friday evening. We're like, okay, we'll get this run over the weekend. So on Monday, we're good to go. We're ready to go. So we kick it off and we go home. Sometime that evening, late that night, I get a call from my manager. Like, you need to come into the office. There's been an issue. I'm like, okay. Not knowing what it is, I come in there. They're like, so we just got a call from a large automotive motor company out of the southeast somewhere, and saying we're scanning them. I'm like, okay, that's not our customer. So what happened is, at that time, Nmap wasn't as advanced as it is now, and if you put a long list of arguments on the command line for it, it would get to a certain point and it would just start truncating. It would just truncate the rest of the line. Okay, that's common in Linux, or Unix, but in this case, Nmap was very handy in that whatever it would truncate to, it would just guess at what the rest of that octet was supposed to be. So yeah, I was supposed to scan whatever .237.0/24. I ended up scanning whatever .2.0.24. Totally different target. So it all worked out fine. Talked to the company that we inadvertently targeted, which is a port scan, mind you, a little service stuff in there. And their response was, well, did you find anything? We're like, no, we didn't. So they're like, okay, no harm, no foul. So we moved on. But that was just a very simple one of me just not understanding the operating system I was working in there. Had I known this would be the case, we would have worked it differently. We would have done it in multiple commands, what have you. But I just didn't understand it at the time. I was very new, very green to it. Also, I don't think the -I capital L option was in Nmap at the time. If it was, I didn't know about it. There again, I might not have known the tool as well. So this is one of those things. Just understand the tools you're dealing with. And as a little bit of an intro, this is just my start into the industry, the first big issues I had with it here. So let's go ahead and some of the other ones, some of the other fails that I've come across. I've either performed myself or other people close to me have. So a while back, there's a lot of news coming out about Cisco Smart Install. You've probably heard about that if you're in the industry. Well, there's a tool, Cisco Smart Install Exploit Tool, SIET. Well, there was a little issue with it at one version of it that if you ran it with the test flag, it would corrupt or delete the startup config. The running config was still fine, just the startup config was bad. So whenever they rebooted the switch, it's all gone. It was quickly fixed, mind you, and once people noticed that, well, the people performing this engagement, they found a lot of Cisco switches out there they wanted to try this on. They were running an older version of Kali or something like that that hadn't been updated a little bit, so it didn't have the latest fixes to SIET. They ran it, didn't notice anything right away. A week or so later, when the customer encountered some other issues and had to just cycle a bunch of their switches, they realized that nothing was coming back up. Finally traced it all back. It was the pen testers who had run this tool without actually updating the tools first, without reading the change logs on the tools that they're running, without understanding the tools that they really ran at the time. Luckily, during the engagement, they had dumped the running config and saved that off as well. At the same time, they had inadvertently trashed the startup config. So we were able to hand it back over, rebuild and all that. This is another one of those of understand the tools that you're using. If you're going to be using some tool that you didn't write and you're not intimately familiar with and things of that nature, go and read. Has it been updated since the last time you used it? What were the biggest changes in there? Was there something like, I don't know, it deletes the config file? Things like that. Those are important things to try to understand about these tools that you're running. All of these little stories are going to be in little groups as I can fit them in there. So this next one here is being aware of it's sort of situational awareness, being polite. It falls into a lot of different things there. So let's say you're at a customer and you're doing an engagement for them on site, and they're just being a real pain in the backside. You're frustrated with them. They're doing everything possible to make your job hard. You're just getting fed up with them. So you go out to dinner, and you're sitting there with your coworkers at dinner. Keep in mind, this is on-site, so you're at another location. You're sitting there with your coworkers, and you're just trying to vent a little bit. You're talking like, oh, yeah, can you believe so-and-so did this or what have you? And you're sitting there just venting about it. You might be venting a little too aggressively or a little too much, and also not realizing that you're in a very small town where everybody pretty much knows each other. So you get done with dinner. It's been going on for a while, and the waitress walks over. You've never said who you work for. Waitress walks over and says, oh, hi, you all must be the guys who are working for so-and-so and working at helping out at so-and-so company right now. You're like, maybe. Why do you ask? Well, Johnny sitting over at the table next to you said he recognized you at work today. Come to find out, Johnny is best friends with the people that the point of contact is. Next day at work was not a very fun day. As you walk in, they're like, so I hear you've been talking about us a little bit. Not necessarily in those words, but the aggression level kind of amped up a little bit. It's sort of that back and forth there. I understand, we all understand that it's okay to get frustrated. It's okay to want to vent. Just be aware of your situation. If you're in a small town where a lot of people know each other and you're talking bad about some of them, they're probably going to hear about it. Especially be cautious if those are your customers. You don't want to have a bad taste in your mouth. Leave a bad taste in their mouth after that. It's just one of these things that, I don't know, I don't know if you want to call it professionalism, common courtesy, whatever. Just try to keep that to official channels, internal chat networks, something like that if you want to, when you're at the hotel, whatever. Just be aware of that, because these things can happen, and they can have some lasting impact with the relationship with that customer. So we're going to talk a little bit about some physical assessments now for a little bit. Well, there was this one physical assessment that I know of where it was slated for later in the week. It's supposed to be a little after hours. Happened to be in Manhattan, in the city up there. Pentesters show up. They're like, okay, we're going to get a quick start here. We're going to see how easy it is to get into this network. They go and scope out the building first. They pull up the address off of the statement of work. They pull it up. They're like, okay. They scope out the building. They're like, okay, I think I've got this. They don't actually try to break into the building at this point, but they're scoping it out. They're like, we can see there's an elevator there. We see all this stuff. That night, engagement officially starts. They get in, they get on the elevator, they go up to the right floor, they get off, they're starting to walk around. They're like, we made it, we're onto the right floor of this building, we're doing it. And they start noticing, what does that company name say? We're in the wrong place. Walk back down, look at the company listing on the big board there by the elevator. You're like, our company isn't listed on here. Walk back outside. At this point, the guard's getting suspicious. He's there. He's starting to watch you. You're outside. You call up your project manager, whatever. Like, okay, listen, we're at the customer's location. We've got into their building. It's not their building anymore. They're like, well, this is the address they gave us. So contact the customer. Long story short, a month or two prior, they switched buildings. Or 6 months earlier, they switched buildings without updating the project manager for this engagement. This could have all been handled during the kickoff call. Like, are you still at location XYZ Street Elm or whatever? No? Okay, what is your new address? No, this wasn't done. So the pen testers broke and entered into a unknown company. Well, it was a known company at that point, but the company didn't know about it, and so the story went on. Just leave it there. But they found the right location then, broke in, did their stuff, found all the cookies, all that fun stuff, all fun stuff. Another time, very similar to that one, it was a bank. You're walking in, you see the bank on this side, it's inside of a little building sort of thing. The bank's on one side, and there's a few other doors around there. You're following up, you see some people, you're trying to look non-suspicious, you have a package in your hand, somebody opens the door for you, you just walk in. You're walking back through there, and again, you finally open your eyes or look up and look around after you get away from everybody, and it doesn't look like a bank. It looks like an engineering firm. So at this point, you're inside of it. I mean, they had to enter key code and everything to get in. They just let you in. So you're like, hey, I'm just going to go with them because I can get in. So again, this one wasn't an issue with the customer not giving you the right address. This was an issue with the pen tester not paying attention to which door they walk into. They just turned 90 degrees. That was the door they wanted to go into, not this door. They went into this door and walked around. They came back out quietly so no one would be interrupted, and then they proceeded to fail to get into the actual bank because it's all glass walls, glass doors, and a very mean secretary standing at the front desk. So they succeeded to breaking into the company they weren't supposed to, but failed at the other one. But this is just one of these. Just be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of the situations that you're dealing with. One last physical one here. Get into a building, two team members working together. They're in there. They're like, okay. They managed to get into the building. They were sneaking around. It's a fairly large building, like 3 stories, takes up like a full city block almost. It's out in the county a ways. They're walking around. They find a back door. They're like, let's go ahead and see if we can prop this door so we can get in later. Excuse me. They've set down their bags there. They're checking on the door. They go outside, checking the door. They hear the door click. They look at each other. Why are we both outside this door? Yeah, I thought you were staying inside to open the door for me if I got stuck. Oh, crap. Not only that, but all their gear was now on the inside of the building as well. So now they had to break back into the building that they had broken into, that they'd locked themselves out of, to retrieve their gear that they left inside and continue their pen test. Luckily, it was a fairly easy building to break into, but that's not the issue. The issue is that neither one communicated with each other to make sure who was doing what job. It's fairly easy to say, I'm going outside to see if I can get back in. You stay here and let me back in if I can't. No, they both walked out. But it was easy enough. They climb a ladder. They jump in through a construction portal. They're fine. But yeah, it's just the things that happen when you're in the heat of the just trying to do that pen test. You just kind of forget about some of this common sense stuff at times, I think. What is this one? So this actually did happen this is one I'll admit to was me. It was me and a few coworkers, actually. I was working for a company at the time that, for whatever reason, sold 8-hour pen tests for web apps. Okay, so be it. You might laugh, you might not, you might say that's standard, I don't know. For me, I don't like that. It was a fairly large web app. It was, if we could get access through it, we could continue on whatever we could within 8 hours. So we're sitting there, we're working on it, and we can feel that we're almost getting something. We got a SQL injection going, we're almost getting it to go through to the back side. And we get to a point, and we've been working on this all day. It's getting already, we already called our wives, like, we're not coming home right now, we're just getting this done because we want to prove something to this customer that we can get it. And we're already past the 8 hours at this point, but we're sitting there, we're like, okay, oh wait, we got it. Commands that are executing, we just can't get the results back. We can tell, like, through timing, SQL injection, stuff like that, you can tell that something's running. We're like, we're issuing commands, and you can tell that even on Airbase, like, you issue a command, and you just type in, like, running a garbage command, it gives you a different kind of error back than if you run a command that succeeds. So you're like, okay, sort of blind SQL here. But we want to get that reverse shell back. We want to know what's going on. Frustrated, we're tired, we're hungry, all this stuff going on there, and the intern just still happens to be in the office. He walks over and is like, oh, so what are you trying to do? Well, we know it's a Windows box in the back end, or at least we believe it is. We're doing all this stuff, and for some reason our connection isn't coming back out. He had the brilliant idea, it seemed perfectly legit at the time. We know if you enable the Windows firewall, you can look at the logs and see what's blocking and all that, or something to that effect. I can't remember exactly. 14 years ago, but okay, sounds great. We issue the commands to do that. You can look at it. Enter, and my mic, keeps moving on me. Hello? There. Nope, I'll just hold it right here then. Hang on. Let's see if I can bend that a little bit. There we go. So as soon as we hit enter on that, we realized that the mistake we made, because all connections, any commands that we could run at that time went away because we just enabled the Windows firewall. which would flat out block anything we were going to be doing or if we already had. So at which point we just dust our hands off, pack up, and we go home for the night and worry about writing the report tomorrow and saying that you're good. We couldn't get in. Not necessarily because you did a great job, sort of, but because we're an idiot. But that's a different issue altogether. Oh, man. So this is one I was present for. I wasn't necessarily involved in, but I was present for this one. There was a social engineering exercise that came up. Run a, I don't know, phishing exercise against, I don't know, few hundred, 400, 500 targets. It's just a blanket default. Check our user awareness, stuff like that. So the senior team members are like, okay, we got this, we're good to go. I don't want to stand all this up. Here, intern, you stand this up for us. Yes, it's the same intern as the previous story. So he goes over there, he's like, fine, I've been running a bunch of social engineering and phishing exercises for the while here. I'll just reuse one of the old ones. He stands it up and says, all right, go. Well, we trust him, or the other team members trust him. They run it, and they're looking at the stats that come back, and there's no hits coming back. Nothing. They ran against like 200 targets or something like that, or 200 target email addresses. Nothing's coming back. Trying to get a little frustrated here. What's going on? They went and looked. No one stood up the phishing website that they were supposed to. They set it up. They just didn't enable the web server. So, yeah. All right, lesson learned, lesson learned. They stand it up again, make sure that the website is up and going. They even go to the website, looks good. It's just like some sort of I don't remember what it was, OWA login or just some sort of standard phishing one. They send it out again for the other 200 or what, the other half of it. And they get hits. Okay, so it's working. But they're getting like a tenth of the number of hits that they would typically expect off of one of these. Not really sure what's going on. Well, they let it run just because they're getting results, and at the end they terminate it and they start looking at it. That's when they realize that the intern really did just copy and paste another engagement over, email and all. Other company name, other company logo in the email, everything. So, well, being good pen testers, they found the silver lining in there, and they wordsmithed it enough to make it not look like they're complete idiots, but saying that, look, your employees, at least 5% of them will still click on an email that has the wrong company name and logo in it and still enter credentials. So it's sort of a save there, but yeah, it shouldn't have had to do that to begin with. Oh, man. I'm talking about copy and paste ones anyway. There's been a number, I won't even go into them, but a number of times I've seen people copy and paste stuff from one report into a new one, keep old verbiage, old company names, domain names, stuff like that in there. Just don't do it. Work from a template and then just copy that around and wordsmith. Old reports are always in issues where, I don't know, you leave names in there, you don't correct things. Just don't. So, hold on. All right, let's see about that. I usually wear a Lavier mic that's on here, so it's a little different. Oh yeah, Dolly Parton, had to put her in there. I lived in Tennessee for long enough. So we're going to talk about some webcam, network-based web cameras for a little bit. Well, both of these are external engagements where a customer, I'll talk about them independently, but they're both same general setup. Customer came to the company and said, look, we have external space. I want you to do an external pen test against it. Might have some web apps, might have whatever. Just see what you can do. All right. In one case, because the pen testers went through, they found a couple of websites, what have you, but they also found a couple internet-based web cameras. And they're sitting here and they're looking at it, and they can guess the password, go look up the documentation, default creds, finding right there. So they open it up, and they're looking around in there, and this particular customer is supposed to be in a law office, okay, some legal firm, what have you. First of all, why would they have internet web cameras? Yeah, whatever. So they're looking at it, and they're looking through some of the cameras. There's a bunch of them. One of the cameras shows a cafeteria, like a relatively large cafeteria. That's kind of odd. Another one shows a hallway. Another one shows some sort of training or classroom. Another one shows a playground. We're not looking at a legal firm. We're looking at an elementary school. So, pause, go talk to customer. This is what we're seeing. They're like, oh yeah, that's on one of the IP spaces that we no longer own. We gave that one back a while back. It's just in our notes that we owned that one. All right, so who wants to call the school that and tell them to fix their cameras? So take care of that one. Similar setup on the other one, doing an internet, external web app, Pentest. Come across some web apps, some cameras. Guess the credential. This one actually was a school. It's a university. So wasn't surprised that you saw school stuff here, but it is a university on this one. Get into it, guess the credentials or default credentials again. And there, this one actually had pan and tilt and zoom options on it. Really cool. This looking out a window, you're like, oh, okay, let's pan to the left. Okay, rotates. There's a whiteboard there with lots of writing on it. And it starts looking at it, you pan down over it, there's a desk with writing and papers on it. Like, oh, this is a gold mine here. So you're just doing that. So after a little bit, it moves back up to home. You're like, huh, maybe it's set on a timer that every 10 minutes it resets or whatever. So I go back and start looking at it again and panning around. Get over to the whiteboard, scanning around on it. Find something that looks like some credentials, you start to write down, it homes again. You're like, oh man, this is getting frustrating. Keep doing this, you're looking down at the desk and it looks like a list of phone numbers and people's names, all that. It resets itself. Finally, you call up the customer, like, hey man, found this web camera, it's on this IP, and he goes, oh yeah, that's our weather one that we take the video off that and put it on our homepage for people to see what the weather is outside the university. Whose office is that in? I was in the IT director's office. Would he have sensitive stuff on his desk and on his whiteboard? Yeah, probably. You might want to change those. Sorry. So, yeah. First of all, you see an internet camera on the available from the internet, default credentials. Somebody's probably already looking at it, but you might just want to double check with the customer before you start potentially broadcasting sensitive information to the world. Just saying. So, a few lessons learned that come out of my whole career is, it boils down to 3 and a possible 4th one at the bottom is, if you're going to do something, if you're going to type in a command, if you're going to type in an IP address, if you're going to copy from this document to this document, double check it. Just do it, because you've probably fat-fingered something. It comes back to the old adage from woodworking, measure twice, cut once sort of thing. It's always easier to spend a little extra time up front to make sure you got everything copied over than to try to backpedal and appease the angry customer after the fact. So, second one, if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. If you broke into a building and it doesn't feel like your customer's building because they're supposed to be in boating and you're looking at financial documents or legal documents and stuff, probably the wrong building. Just saying, might want to double check there. If you have access into a building, into a network, before you do something that may compromise that access, get a second method of getting back in. Have a second access in there. This is very common, like when you hear people say one shell is not enough, you always have a back door, a second way in, stuff like that. This is one of these things that you tend to forget about in the heat of the moment. You're like, oh yeah, I have access to this one critical server, I want to start doing this other stuff, and you end up blocking yourself out, you end up setting off some alert and it blocks your connection. One of the first things you should always do is try to set up a second means of gaining access again, whether it's a callback later on a timer or you leave somebody on the inside of the building so they can open the door when you shut yourself out, whatever the case. And finally, understand and update the tools you're using. One of the key things I would stress is if you're going to be running an exploit against some customer, don't just download it from exploit DB or wherever and run it. Minimum, look through there to see if there's IP addresses. Minimum, go in there and replace the shell code. Stuff like that. Just don't run something blindly. If it's a relatively large, well-maintained tool, read the notes of it, make sure that there's no major issues with it right now, get the latest version and run that. You can't always understand every single thing a tool does, but you can do your best diligence in there. So that's just some of that. One of the last things here is say, I know these have been sort of funny stories at times. I'm sure some of us have had similar experiences, or you've had your own experiences out there. The main thing is to understand that if you're new to the industry or you've been in the industry for a long time, you're going to make mistakes. It's not all just rainbows and sunshine. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be issues. There's going to be things that you mess up that you're thinking, oh my God, I've just lost my job over this. Well, you may have, but you may not have either. Don't assume the worst. I'm just saying, there are times when you do stuff that it is so bad you're going to lose your job, but learn from it. Don't let it completely derail you. Pick yourself back up. Of course, take whatever time you need to recenter yourself, all that, but pick yourself back up, learn from your mistake, try not to make that same mistake again, and move forward. Failure and mistakes are part of life. You're always going to make them. Just learn from them and go forward. And if you're so inclined, like myself, share your mistakes with the world so other people can hopefully learn from them as well, or at least get a good laugh out of you, which always cheers people up. So, questions, comments, requests. We have a few minutes left in the presentation. If anybody has any requests for any particular kind of stories, I've got a whole repertoire of them in the back of my head from my career and what have you. If anybody has anything they want to ask me about pen testing in general, I'd be happy to try to answer. So, if not, thank you. But if anybody has any questions, I've got a few minutes here. Anyone? Yes, sir.
Do you ever have any run-ins with the law?
Any run-ins with the law was the question. Personally, no, but I've had coworkers that have had to make a speedy retreat out of engagements because they were breaking into a local community bank, and the people there got very suspicious. He felt very uncomfortable there at that point. He's like, let me go get some out of the car. He got in his car and headed out. About the time the SWAT team was pulling in, I was held inside of the vehicle and all. He calls up the customer like, yeah, you might want to call the manager of bank XYZ because I think they just called SWAT on me. But I'm out of here. There was another customer, another colleague of mine at the time. He was doing a physical engagement. He had a package. He walked in. It's sort of a strip mall area. He walks into the building, and he left it on the desk there. It's a sort of goodie basket or something like that had some thumb drives in it, hoping they would take them and plug them in. And he turns and starts leaving. There was no one there at the time. They notice him leaving. Somebody sees him at the door and runs over and grabs him. Like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm just doing this. I'm just dropping off a goodie package. Story didn't work out well. So they got more and more suspicious. Keep in mind, this is in Boston area, right after the Boston bombing that happened a while back. Everybody's on high alert. They kept questioning him. He's like, okay, fine, I'm here doing a pen test. He hands out the get out jail free card with all the contact names. No one answers their phone. By the time somebody actually does respond to one of the phone calls, he's already in handcuffs, waiting on the chair while the cop is going through some paperwork already. He got out of it after somebody finally was on the phone. But there's again, if you're going to be doing something that risky, make sure the people who are your lifelines are going to answer the phone. Because otherwise, things in his case can get a little iffy. So yes, there have been experiences with the law. Personally, no, but yes, I know of several. So, anyone else? Yes?
How many times has the production database accidentally been dropped?
More than I know of, I'm sure. Yeah, it has happened. More commonly than that is, how many times has the production database been filled up with thousands of blank requests because you hit a web app page that submits a form for you and you hit it with some automated tool. And before somebody alerts you, it's already submitted 100,000 requests that's filling up the database. So that's happened more than dropping the database, but I don't know of any off the top of my head of where we dropped the production database, but I do know where we've completely corrupted a production database, yes. Yes. Oh, sorry.
So in cases where you have caused an outage for a customer,
yes,
how did you smooth things over with the customer about that? Or
okay. If and when things do happen badly for a customer to the point where they're upset with you, there's issues there, how do you make things smooth again, make everybody happy? Some cases it's just not possible. Honestly, in some cases it's just not possible. But in most cases, explaining what happened, assisting or flat out doing the remediation, the fixing, the recovery of whatever happened goes a long ways to helping them out. Just saying like, oh, sorry, your database is dropped. Bye. This is not the way to do it. That's the case with Cisco Smart Install. We actually had copies of the running config at the time, so we're like, so sorry that happened. Glad that you let us know before we trashed all of our data after the engagement, but here you go. We have your copies of this. It didn't make everything back to ground zero happy with us, but it went a long ways that we still had that we could help them out to recover. And then we use that as a learning experience for all of us. Like, okay, look, you do need to fix your systems. We do apologize for doing this, but you go through a learning process there. And you just you do whatever you can to help appease them. From the pen tester's point of view, you just try to be as accommodating and all that as possible. From the legal side and the corporate side, that might involve some discounts on future work. It might, whatever the case in there, but there's two different aspects to that. But a lot of times it's just trying to be as understanding and helpful as possible. It usually does it. So, anyone else? One here and one in the back still, so.
Hey, do you have a story that went really well, but so well that it was unbelievable how it came together, that you had to be there, that you had to have pictures to prove it? Something just totally out of left field that came together and succeeded.
A few, yes. I'm trying to think of what would be a good one. There's one where a colleague of mine, while waiting on the point of contact to come pick him up at the lobby of the building, had already got in through their wireless network and compromised their domain controller before he showed up. But that was an interesting one, but that was just a very poorly configured wireless and all that. Another one was on a physical where the tester is like, okay, what are your... He manages to get into the building. It's a power plant of sorts. He gets through. He's wearing the hat and all that. He manages to sneak his way in. He gets into this nice room, and he calls up the point of contact, goes, okay, I made it into the building. Is there anything that you would think would be like the ultimate bad, or that I could, if I got somewhere, what would be the ultimate thing? He goes, well, if you got into the control room. He goes, well, what does the control room look like? He describes it, he goes, selfie. Is this the control room? He goes, just come to my office now. We need to talk. So, things like that happen. And there's always going to be those scenarios. Like I was doing a physical one time. I walk into the building. I had not one of these, but like one of the big gulp. I'm asking the nice receptionist there. I'm like, I'm looking for this address. Da 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 da. She's like, oh, it's right down the road down here. I'm like, oh, thank you. By the way, do you have a restroom I can go to? She's like, oh yeah, no problem. It's back behind me, all the way to the staircase, up across to the next building, and it's over there. I'm going, okay. Like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I come back by. I'm like, hey, okay, bye. Already set up backdrops and all that. I'm like, sometimes scenarios just present themselves like that. That is just interesting. I got caught underneath the desk of some people trying to hook up taps before when they come back, and that always gets interesting. But had a coworker who snuck in through the back door of a building doing a physical. They're like, okay, we caught you. You need to come with us. You're very suspicious. We're taking you to the security manager. Stops them outside the door. He goes, hold on a second. Let me go get him. Turns around, knocks on the door. As soon as he does, he takes off running. Takes him like an hour to find him in the building. He's like 3 floors down on the other side of the desk working away. I mean, there's some awesome stories in there. It's like for non-pen testers, like, how did you do that? But if you do physicals and you're willing to make those risks, you can see how it could happen. So it's sort of that gray area as to if it had to be there or not. But yeah, there's some amazing stories that are out there. And if you want to hit me up offline, I can definitely try to share some more in there. But I think there was one more back there. Yes.
Oh, it is on. So basically the same question, but you hit the wrong target. So where you successfully managed to destroy the wrong target, you know.
I would say the one where I don't know of any offhand that it would be a perfect hit for that, but because we've always, in my experience, at least people I know and myself, we've always caught ourselves before we did anything too bad. But it's these scenarios, like I said at the very beginning. You break into a building, you get by the security guard, you go up to the elevator, you piggyback through the big security doors, you're in the building, you're walking around looking at laptops and stuff, and you're like, none of these say the right name. Yeah, that's the closest I have to one like that. It's just, before you do anything too damaging, we've always managed to catch ourselves, or everybody I know has, so I'm sure there's scenarios out there where that hasn't happened, but luckily it hasn't ever happened to me or any of my coworkers that I've worked with that something that bad has happened. Yes, anyone else? I'll share one last one here from my days from way ago on just some standard etiquette for your coworkers. This is a very just odd scenario, odd situation all around. A coworker of mine was tasked with doing an internal assessment at a customer. At the time, we had a policy that you call before you leave to go to the customer, and you call when you arrive at the customer so we know you made it. He called when he left. He didn't ever call when he made it. We didn't know what was going on. Monday morning rolls around. Still haven't heard from him. Noon rolls around. The customer calls us, says, hey, I've got all your equipment up here. What do you want me to do with this? Like, what are you talking about? You have all of your equipment. Oh, yeah, your employee showed up in sweatpants and a stained T-shirt, no shoes, and handed us all this gear and said for us to call you and tell you he quit. Yeah. So, yeah, we quickly scrambled, got somebody else on site to try to smooth all that over, but I'm still not sure the full story. I do believe there was a night in jail involved in there and a few other things, but yeah, quitting via proxy through a customer is not the way to handle this, people. Professionalism, let's have a little bit. So, with that, I'll go ahead and call it an end unless anybody has any other comments, questions? Yes, in the back there. Our video guy.
So do you have anywhere you had like a phishing attack where you got like 100% and the customer didn't believe you?
No, but something very similar. We had one where we had a target pool of like 20 people. We sent them the phishing email that said like, okay, here, go to this link and do something with it. And I forget what it was. I think it was like some sort of payload. I don't remember. It's been a while. But we sent it to like our target 20, 50 people, something like that. We got close to 1,000 hits off of it. What happened was one of the people thought it was suspicious, sent it to the security office. Security office took the exact same email, forwarded it out to the company, and said, if you see this, do not click on it. Everybody clicked on it. So we had better than 100% success with that, just saying. But yes, it has happened, and that was a fun write-up. I had something very similar with a thumb drive drop one time. Dropped it outside of the SOC of a large company. And we dropped several around. We dropped one like at a copy machine. Guy plugged it in. We knew which ones were which. We saw that he plugged it in. We got the shell. And we went back to find it. It was back on the copy machine. He returned it like nothing happened. But we dropped one off at outside the SOC. And we started getting shells off of every system in the SOC. As they would plug it in, it's not doing anything. Go to this one. It's not doing anything. And this was a relatively large government, international, long story, but yes, it was a not good thing. So, yes.
Have you had any incidents where the security team caught on to you and just decided to screw with you?
Sort of. I mean, there's been scenarios where they caught on to us and then they'll start changing the passwords of the accounts that we create and stuff like that. Times where we're doing sort of a purple team and they catch the red team but they don't let on, so they start setting up special accounts and whatever. Just like you create an account and they'll just let you create the account and then they'll delete it. You're like, what is this? Or like sometimes you'll connect to a system and it's fine. Connect and the shell drops. You connect again and it's fine. You're like, this isn't how this works. There's gremlins, and they're just sitting there going, I mean, there's always going to be those scenarios. Relatively low incidence of that because most of the time they just flat out just drop you and do everything, but occasionally you'll get somebody who's a little bit of a wisecracker in there. And
I asked because if someone had forwarded that email to me, I would have posted it to Twitter.
Oh, yeah. There you go. So, yeah. Anyone else? If not, my contact information. I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you for sitting through this. Thank you for listening to me ramble on for a good, what was this now, 45 minutes or so about making mistakes and making a fool of myself. But hopefully you've learned a little something about that and you feel a little better about your own mistakes because they're not as bad as mine. And if they are worse than mine, I'm sorry. But yeah, thank you very much, and everybody have a wonderful day here at B-Sides. Thank you.